We're now studying from Hazart Inayat Khan on spiritual liberty. This was volume 1 of his work of now 13 volumes called Spiritual Liberty. And we were talking about creation. The only being has manifested himself through 7 planes of existence to accomplish his desire of being recognized. Okay, so you know in the Quran that it says that God wanted to be known and therefore he became adamant. Hazart Khan is going to talk about the 7 planes of manifestation. And the reason why we're studying this now is because Ibn Arabi has in his writing, this would be understood. All this would be understood in his writing, so that you start out with this knowledge. So it starts out, the story starts out that God is unmanifest. She is present, but she's not manifest. A baby can be not born and still exist. Everybody knows that experience, right? An idea can exist and not be manifest. Well, God existed in an unmanifest state. In the Old Testament, it says that the world was void. You know, there was this visit by the Buddhist proselytizers during the time of Jesus. And they came through and they studied with the intelligentsia in Jerusalem, and everybody learned from each other. And in my experience, this has nothing to do with good research, this just has to do with my experience, that was the time when the Jews were in the destruction of the first temple, and they went to Iraq. It was called the First Diaspora. And there was a Torah, a Bible, written during that time. And in that Bible has this story of creation, which talks about the world being void. And that word void shows up in the Prajnaparamita Sutra as well. And in the inner planes, in a quote mystical sense, it describes the same metaphor. That is, when we say something is empty in Buddhism, we don't mean that there is no more water, no more tea left in the cup. What we mean is that each thing gets its truth from its relationships. That's what it means when we say that everything is empty. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's nothing. It means that it has the capacity to be whatever you want it to be. Do you want this to be pottery? You want this to be an ornament? You want this to be a cup? You want this to be a teacup? Whatever the relationship is, that's what this is. It has many truths. Some are unmanifest at the moment. So the first plane is that we say God is unmanifest. Mathematicians say that our capacity to count is infinite, right? We can count to infinity. You can never reach we can reach infinity by going from 1 to 2, but we can never encompass infinity, okay? So there's a lot of our ability to count that's unmanifest. Okay. The next step down, a more dense step, is the plane of eternal consciousness, ahadiyat. So, what does that mean? You can imagine the ocean. There's a lot in the ocean that we don't know about that still happens. And it happens, and it's been happening forever in the past, and it's going to happen forever in the future. Because, as we know, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just is. Okay? Well, energy is a good example of eternal consciousness. Because energy has ishq. You know what ishq is? You know, ishq means love or attraction. So energy is ishq. You know, we use the word ishq like love, like, oh, I love you, you know, but it's not really that. It's not even brotherhood. It is that, but ishq means the magnetism of attraction. Well, that's energy. Energy is, you know, primarily the functions like magnetism or as magnetism. This eternal consciousness becomes manifest as specific consciousness. And that's called wahadat. And the plane of consciousness is the plane of knowingness. So let's say and it's a hard plane. So let's say you know me. It's true. You might say some abstract things like, oh, he's a man, and, you know, yeah, he's a nice guy, or, you know, he travels around, seems to know what he's talking about. There's a lot of abstract things that you could apply to me. But that has nothing to do with knowing me. But if you know me, you say, oh, there's a place in my heart that finds an affinity to who he is, and I know that place because I know that about myself. And that's the plane of consciousness. And that plane is the wahadat, which means we get the word wahid. We get wahadat from the attribute wahid, which means one. So how do you know? Just like how does a computer know something or recognize something? Because it's already in the computer. So how do you know that part of me that says, oh, I know him? You know that part in you. And that part is in you, and that part is conscious of itself and therefore recognizes itself when it sees it in another.